Alright guys, the strongest non-legendary Pokemon. Well, no mythicals either of course. No need for Arceus in pre-Dark Void nerf Darkrai that take up my list when they don't belong here. Regardless, I am here to basically give opinions. When it comes to competitive history, along with the stats and move pool, I've decided I wanted to simply express the non-legendaries I feel are the strongest. What have been the most gorked and absurdly powerful creatures that have made a decent bit of actual legendaries look like chumps in comparison. But before we get to number 10, 1. Mismagius, Heartgold, Randomizer, Hardcore Nuzlocke, links will be in the description below, and we also have some honorable mentions real quick. Cyclezar, Gliscor, Baxcalibur, Rillaboom, Dragapult, Garchomp, Weather Setters, and Megas. Because including Megas when they're no longer being featured feels disingenuous. With that, let's get started. So, Greninja feels weird to place at number 10, and some of the honorable mentions could have easily taken its place. However, Greninja, even with the protein nerfs, has still remained an incredibly versatile threat. Now, while Battle Bond being changed has kind of hindered Greninja a bit due to its lack of access to Ash Greninja as a form, I still find Battle Bond to be rather excellent, because it makes Greninja a fast late game cleaner, and part of the reason to even run Choice Scarf Meowscarada. Access to stuff like Hydro Pump, Grass Knot, Ice Beam, Dark Pulse, and even Water Shuriken for priority makes Greninja an excellent offensive monster. And then stuff like Protean Spikes to get the jump on a Volt Switcher trying to slap up your Greninja has also made it a very funny Pokemon in terms of utility. A well-rounded threat, and one that becomes even more powerful on Rain. Then again, it can also even be stronger on Sun. That is, if you're willing to be silly and use Terra Fire Terra Blast. The mascot of being one of the single most boring playstyles on the planet, Toxapex is undeniably one of the best Pokemon to ever live. Even with Scald removed from its kit, it has still found a way to absolutely anchor stall. You know how this goes. We got the Assault Vest offensive set with Infestation, and then 3 other attacks. We got the Hazard Setter with Toxic Spikes, or we got the Trapper and Remover with stuff like Toxic and Infestation combined, so an unprepared Pokemon can just mindlessly flail against it. And of course, Regenerator, giving it healing upon switching out, has absolutely amped its viability to an extreme. This Pokemon was designed to be the most annoying stuff ever, and one of the only things as annoying as Garganacl in UU. Why is that still around? Here's to hoping it's banned by the time that this video comes out. It demands a sacrifice. Every time it comes in, something is either taking massive damage or outright being removed from the field. Something will be sacked off in order to get a safe switch in to Ursaluna Bloodmoon. Calm Mind, Bloodmoon, Vacuum Wave, Earth Power, Moonlight, and even Body Press are all excellent tools. It's one of the best Terra abusers with Terra Poison, so it can't be poisoned, and will only have 2 weaknesses. Its ability being scrappy with some extra bells and whistles means that the things that would switch around to play around Ursaluna regular no longer work. The only way to have ever stopped it truly is to have Blissey act as a special wall and set up Calm Minds on it. And before this happened, no one was using Blissey because it was bad. It's a Pokemon that was so good in Gen 9 that Blissey rejoined OU just to beat Bloodmoon. And nothing else. Oh, and then Ursaluna could just be running Body Press with its high physical defense to squash Blissey anyways. I love and hate this Pokemon at the same time. Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, Sucker Punch, Sucker Punch, Sucker Punch, Terra Flying Terra Blast, and then Sucker Punch. Oh boy, I sure love Kingambit. Anyways, for real though, Kingambit is a very silly Pokemon, and might be one of the most poorly designed threats to ever pop up in Gen 9 OU. The amount of games it can steal in the late game just because you lost a singular 50-50 is very stupid. Obviously, it's one of the best Terra abusers, and while we're at it, milk is white, the sky is blue, and oranges are the color orange. It has an incredibly high attack stat, with moves that gain power every single time one of your allies faints, which turns what would be a somewhat reasonable bulky attacker into one of the hardest hitting threats in the metagame. While there is counterplay depending on the Terra, assuming you don't force out the opponent's Terra earlier in the game, the guessing game you have to play with that Terra is very stressful. Typically my favorite counterplay is to use Will-O-Wisp or try to encore it in the Sucker Punch and then wait until Sucker Punch is out of power points. Just hope that Kingambit didn't bring its packed lunch that consists of a singular Lumberry if your goal is to burn it. In National decks, access to Pursuit and Knockoff drove it over the edge. And from there, it was never seen in that tier again. Alright, this is a broken Pokemon I enjoy. Because, well, this feels justified. Primeape went and got so angry that it died, and then it comfortably beat the ever-living crap out of the Grim Reaper, came back, and is now no longer shackled by its mortal shell, therefore being ready to tear the OU metagame a new one. Honestly, in lore, I'm surprised that this Pokemon can take damage or faint at all, given that not even death could really hold Annihilape back. Then again, ghosts as a whole kind of have that gimmick where it's weird that they have stamina and can take damage. Maybe Pokemon have the ability to attack the soul, kind of like that funny skeleton from a game that absolutely no one's heard about. Either way, its excellent bulk, access to Rage Fist, and its ability to abuse Terra have all joined together to create a personal favorite of mine. Every time I look at it, I can't help but adore how raw of a design that is. Now, what do you run alongside Rage Fist to ensure you take minimum hits without fainting? Bulk Up, Drain Punch, and either taunt with leftovers or rest with the Chestoberry. Sometimes I like to pretend Primeape died, and me and the gang went around the world searching for the Dragon Balls to bring him back. God, I love All Might. I love how even when he is in the most dangerous situations, he fights with a smile on his face. No matter what, he will always win, whether he's taking on 3 bad guys at once or 10. I feel at ease when he shows up and declares that he is here, because I know whatever dreadful situation I found myself in will be solved. Not to mention, he's excellent in singles. Sure, he fell off in VGC due to power creep, and people realizing that needing the switch out turn 1 is predictable and telegraphed. But he was never truly bad. When he uses One for All to power up, he has a beyond excellent stat spread, compounded with Jet Punch, which is just Aqua Jet but better, Taunt, Drain Punch, Bulk Up, Wave Crash, Ice Punch, and of course his leftovers so he can keep on fighting. His water typing, giving him only 2 weaknesses as well, makes him an overall excellent defensive Pokemon the way he is offensive. And once it starts to rain, nothing is switching into All Might smash attacks. So what if we made Blaziken a Psychic type special attacker with access to Roost so it could keep going, Calm Mind, and then stored power? Now, surely, this wouldn't at all be the most scuffed thing ever, is what I would say if this wasn't the most scuffed thing ever. This Ostrich made me so mad back in the early days of Generation 9 because I was bad and I couldn't handle it, because if I had so much as played 1 turn wrong, I was going to lose the entire game because this stupid annoying bird set up a substitute. With Calm Mind, it became too specially bulky and powerful. With Speed Boost, it became too fast. And with Stored Power, even unaware Pokemon couldn't wall it. Terra fighting Terra Blast also let it remove steals that otherwise stood a chance. like Kingambit. Gita was cooking when she put it on her team. It's a shame that she's running the wrong set. And now that I think about it, Gita is on 2 Ubers, and she plays them both horrendously. How sad. You would think that Basculegion and Houndstone wouldn't be somewhere on this list until you remembered that they happen to share a very similar signature move called Last Respects, which is, ironically, incredibly disrespectful. Your entire team having to perish just so you can achieve unwallable power? Kinda cringe, man. Be a better friend. Anyways, real talk. What makes these two so utterly busted is that Houndstone became a better Sandrush sweeper than Excadrill and Dracozolt could even dream of, because all it needed was some fainted allies and a T-Tar willing to die for the cause. And with that, Houndstone became Death Incarnate. Meanwhile, Basculegion with Swift Swim was arguably better due to better stats and a need for less LS to faint for your Last Respects to tear through teams while being supported by Rain. This and stuff like Wave Crash and Flip Turn makes it arguably better, but they both deserve the slot all the same, because they're both really strong with their stupid signature move, and even in Ubers, they can cause problems. So, most of the Pokemon on this list so far have needed some type of setup to really assert their dominance as the stupidest thing on the planet. Whether it be speed boosting, a single turn of Swords Dance, winning some 50-50, bulking up to power up your Jet Punches, a weather, or any of that sort. This is where things get a little too different for the next 2 Pokemon, because they don't know what setup means. The first instance of this is Galarian Darmanitan, who with Guerrilla Tactics is literally always on Choice Band. Combining this with actual Choice Band made its wall breaking so unbelievably good that even the most defensive Pokemon in existence didn't want to come in on it. And anything that didn't match its base 95 speed tier was getting one shot by base 140 with 2 Choice Bands stacked onto it. And then of course, if you didn't want to play Band, you played Scarf. And now, faster, frailer attackers don't want a piece of it because they could just outright die too. Sure, it was frail and prone to revenge killing, but that meant you had to run a revenge killer on your team. Otherwise, it would U-turn out of any bad matchup you could try to create for it, and then immediately get into a team member with a good matchup. Its coverage was also insane. Flare Blitz, Earthquake, Hammer Arm or Superpower, and even the incredibly unnecessary Iron Head. This Pokemon was truly a dominant force that had to be stopped. Otherwise, it warped the metagame in a really unhealthy way. Speaking of unhealthy, now, I don't know if I am wrong about this, and that Darmanitan is actually better because of its higher attack and Guerrilla Tactics. But when I think of the most broken non-legendary to ever exist, my brain always brings me back to Dracovish. Dracovish was an absolutely benign threat in its own right, and entirely because of Vicious Rend. Vicious Rend had very little in terms of switch-ins, and if you switched out to bring a Pokemon in on what it resisted, it would treat Vicious Rend as going first, last I checked, and the damage would double. This being considered a biting move and getting buffed by Strongjaw made matters even worse. With Strongjaw, it's good in rain. With Sandrush, it's good in sand. Without weather, a Banded Dracovish still cleans through any wall, and a Scarfed Dracovish cleans through any frail attacker. Its typing is excellent defensively too, so it can't just, let's say, die to Mach Punch and Bullet Punch the way the number 2 did. No, you had to hit it more than once usually if you were trying to kill it, which made matters even worse. When it comes to reasons to play Sticky Web, a Banded Dracovish made a damn good argument. Its sheer breaking power made it oppressive, and if it ever comes back, I fear for our souls. And that's it. What do you think is the actual strongest non-legendary? Is it Galarian Darmanitan? Is it something else entirely? Is it going to be Fear Rattata? And then everyone's gonna tell you that that joke is older than the fossil Pokemon. Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, I'm gonna go play Ubers, because even if Annihilape is bad there, I just want to play it because it's one of my favorites.